Hello students, this is Mr. Andrade. Today I'm going to teach you how to solve two-step equations. If you haven't done so, go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and copy this down here and this right here so I can explain it to you right now. Okay, I figure you have copied this down already. Solving two-step equations. Recall that the order of operation ensures that numerical expressions such as 2 times 5 plus 3 have only one value. To reverse the operations, undo them in reverse order. Okay, so if you remember PEMDAS, you know this is the order of operation of how you're supposed to do, all right? So now, the first time that you learned that you were supposed to do anything in parentheses first, then anything in exponents, then you had to do multiplication and division, whichever came first, if you had both of them, right? And then, lastly, you are to do addition and subtraction. This is what you have learned so far when you solve operations or expressions like this. For example, in this diagram, it says here that you start with 2 and you multiply times 5. Then you add 3 to get 13. Then, well, in order to go backwards, you have to undo the operations in reverse order. So the last thing you did was add 3, then now you're going to subtract 3. That puts you back at 10. That puts you back at 10. And then when you divide by 5, 10 divided by 5, that puts you back right where you started. So this is going to be the concept right here, undoing the operations backwards to solve two-step equations. And 2 steps actually means that that's how many steps it takes you to get to the value of the variable. Now, let's look at the definition. A two-step equation such as 2 times x plus 3 equals 9 has 2 different operations. It has multiplication right here and addition right there. To solve a two-step equation, undo the operations in reverse order of the order of operations. Okay, so that's a little confusing. You're like, okay, so first I learned that I have to do anything in division first and anything in addition and subtraction first. Now, to solve two-step equations, you have to do backwards. You have to undo anything that's an addition or subtraction. Then once you undo that, then you have to undo anything that's being multiplied or divide. It's very, very simple. So anything that's addition and subtraction is what you're going to undo first. And then whatever's left over, it'll probably be some kind of multiplication or division. So let's see what that really means in a real problem here. So step 1, undo the addition or subtraction first. Well, you remember from solving one-step equations that to undo any addition, you have to subtract. And to undo any subtraction, you have to add. You have to do the opposite. Now, step 2, undo the multiplication or division. So as you can see, you have to undo any addition or subtraction first. Then you undo any multiplication or division second. Let's see how that works in example number 1. Example number 1 says, solve 2 times x plus 3 equals 9. Represent the solution on the number line. Check your solution. Okay, so we got, first thing you got to do, rewrite the equation. Right? Make it nice and pretty just for yourself, the way you like it. Now, we see that right here we have addition. So this is the first part that you have to undo. So in order to undo addition by 3, you have to subtract 3. But by the properties of equality, you have to do it to both sides. So in this case, the 3 plus minus 3 cancels and that becomes a 0. Now the only thing left over on this side, it's only the 2x. So you bring that down. So here's your 2x now. Then you bring down your equal sign all the way to the bottom. And now you actually perform the operation just like before. So 9 minus 3 is equal to 6. Now you have this brand new one-step equation. So you did step number 1 already, undoing the addition by subtracting by 3. So remember to always look at your blue hints here so you can know what happened from one step to the next step. Now you have one more step to go. Now you can look at your x here, and you see that this is multiplication. 2 times x equals 6. Well, now remember that step number 2 is to undo any multiplication or division. In this case, you have multiplication. So since x is being multiplied by 2, you're going to go ahead and divide by 2. By the properties of equality, you have to do it to both sides. Now, this should look familiar to you, that whenever you're dividing anything by itself, the answer is 1. So the only thing left over is your x. You bring it down, you bring your equal sign down, and then you actually perform this operation. 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. And this is your solution right there. Now, as you can see, now we combined the addition and multiplication and the addition and subtraction. So it's all mixed together. It's like doing 2 one-step equations all at the same time. So we did 1 step for addition and subtraction, and then 1 step for any division or multiplication. So just like we learned on the lesson before, you know that you have to do the opposite of whatever is happening to the variable. Now let's go ahead and check this solution, x equals 3, see if it makes sense. Now remember, since x is equal to 3, then you go ahead, substitute this 3 into the variable of the original equation. So right here you had 2x plus 3 equals 9. So then instead of x, now we're going to substitute 3 for x. So remember that when you substitute for x or any variable, you have to put parentheses, because this still means multiplication. It's just a very simple way of saying multiplication. So then now you follow the order of operation as you would normally. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 3, that should be 9. And then bring down your equal sign, bring down the 9, and 9 equals to 9? Yes, it is. So in this case, it checks. Since you have 9 equals 9, a true statement, that means that x is the solution. Now, in order to graph this solution in a number line, all you have to do is start with the actual solution. So let's put a 3 there, and then just add a couple numbers to the left and to the right. This is so you'll know how to handle the a number line, so that you'll know exactly where that number is on the number line. Okay, let's go ahead and do another example. Well, let's continue with this one. It says you can use the number line to check your solution. So let's see what they did here. You have to understand that this is actually 2 groups of something, right? So this is actually 2 groups of 3, and you can see it right here. This is 1 group of 3 right here. This is another group of 3. So there's 2 groups of 3. That puts you at 6. And then you just add 5 singles, 1, 2, 3, and that puts you at your solution of 9. This is just a way of showing you on the number line. All right, go ahead and go to page 535 so we can do the next example. Example number 2. Okay, no problem here. Now we see that the coefficient of y here is -2. I'm going to go ahead and go in green on this one. Solve -2y minus 7 equals 3. Check your solution. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is rewrite your equation. Then you have to analyze what you're looking at and then identify your variable. Okay, my variable is over here. Yes, now they're multiplying it times -2, and this is multiplication right there. This is multiplication, and here you got subtraction. So the first thing you have to undo is this subtraction by 7. So since they're subtracting 7, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to add 7, but you're going to do it to both sides to maintain the equality. Undo subtraction first by adding 7 to both sides. So we do that, this becomes 0, right? The only thing that's left over is this. So you bring this down, and now you only have -2y, -2 times y equal to, you do this operation, 7 plus 3 is 10. So now you have a brand new equation. But now you don't see any addition or subtraction anymore. Now the only thing you see that on the y side, you're getting multiplication by 2. So this means multiplication. negative 2 times y. So then now you have to undo this multiplication here. Since their y is being multiplied by negative 2, you have to divide by negative 2. So what's the opposite operation of multiplying by negative 2? Dividing by negative 2. Then by equality, by the property of equality, here you have to do it to both sides. Do you know that this cancels? You bring down your y, bring down your equal sign. Now you have to perform this operation. Now you have to remember your rules of integers. A positive number divided by a negative number will give you a negative number. Now you just have to follow perform the operation. 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. And this is your solution. This is the value of y that goes here in order to make this equation true. And then now let's go ahead and check it over here on the right side. I'm going to rewrite the equation negative 2. Let's write check on there. Check. Negative 2 times y minus 7 equals 3. Now, instead of putting y, I'm going to rewrite it, and I'm going to use the value negative 5. So negative 2, in parentheses, negative 5 minus 7 equals 3. Now, remember, the equal sign, you must keep it lined up, and whatever's on the right side, you keep it on the right side. Anything from the left side, you keep it on the left side, and you go straight down. So here we have, now you have to follow the operation forward. We know that a negative times a negative is a positive. So 2 times 5 becomes positive 10. Now you bring down the minus, you bring down the 7, you bring down the 3. Now you bring down the equal sign again. What is 10 minus 7? That is 3. And then you bring down this 3. Is 3 equal to 3? Yes, it is. That, if this is a true statement, then you go over here and you say, yes, this is the solution. The solution of y. That's exactly what it means when you check the answer. All right, let's go ahead and do example number 3, which seems a little bit more complicated. Remember, students, if you don't understand something, pause the video, go back and rewind it, and double check to make sure that you understand what happens from one step to the next step. This is very important. You can't just watch the video all the way through and expect that you're going to learn everything just by watching it once. You have to stop it, analyze it, stop it, and analyze it until you know exactly what's happening. All right, let's take a look at this equation here. The first thing you got to do is rewrite it. Next thing you got to do is identify the variable. Let's put a little hint over here. Identify the variable. Okay, so let's identify the variable. Where is it? Okay, here's our letter. That has to be the variable. So our variable is r, is being multiplied times 1/5, and then they're adding 4. Now, this is a little tricky because you're going to think that this addition is for the 4. But it's not, because you're supposed to read an equation from left to right. So this actually says 4 plus 1/5 times r. But that doesn't really matter, because you know that anything that's multiplication has to be undone last. So this is going to be done last no matter what. So that means that this number has to disappear. This is the number you need to make go away. Now in the front there's nothing, so you have to assume that it's a positive number. And how do you get rid of a positive number? You perform the opposite. So here it's a plus 4, then you're going to subtract 4. And make sure to keep them lined up so that you know exactly what you're doing. Then since we subtracted 4 here, we have to subtract 4 over here. Now, what is 4 minus 4? That becomes 0. The only thing left over is your 1/5 times r, and that's what comes down, as you can see here. Then you actually have to perform this operation. It says here 4 minus 1 minus 4. Now if you remember the rules for subtracting integers, all this can be rewritten like this. -1 plus a -4. And it makes it a lot easier to perform. Now you see that a negative 1 plus a negative 4, when the sign's the same, you have to add them. So this gives you 5, and you have to keep the same sign. So this is negative 5. That's how it got to here. Okay? So remember, this is 4. This is 4, negative 4. So that's how you rewrite. Every time we have to subtract, it's better if you rewrite it as an addition problem to make things easier on yourself. Okay, so now that we subtracted 4 on both sides, we ended up with this brand new equation here. Now this one should look also familiar now. If you have a coefficient that it's a fraction, how do we undo a fraction when it's next to our variable, right, as a coefficient? Well, if you remember correctly, we have to multiply times the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/5 is actually 5 over 1. And it's better if you put it in parentheses like this. It's always a lot better, so you'll know. Now here is minus 1, so you put this over 1. This whole thing in parentheses like this. Right? That way you'll know that you're doing the same thing to both sides. Now if you remember, this 5 cancels this 5. This 1 cancels this 1. We got 1 times 1, 1 times 1, and then we end up with 1 over 1, which is just 1. So the whole thing disappears, and you end up with 1r. All right? Okay, so now, we also learned last week that when you multiply fractions, you have to have two fractions. Now in this case, you have a negative 5, and the best thing to do is to just put it over 1, and that turns it into a fraction, because what is negative 5 divided by 1? The same thing, negative 5. And now you go ahead and use your rules for multiplying fractions. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So we know here that a positive times a negative will give me a negative. And 5 times 5 is 25. So the whole thing here is negative 25 over, now you got to do 1 times 1, which gives you 1. So we know that any number over 1 is just that number. So negative 25 over 1 is just negative 25. The solution is negative 25. Okay? So let's go ahead and check it. I'm going to go ahead and check it right here. Check. Let's put here example number 3. Then we rewrite the equation 4 plus 1/5, but instead of r, now I'm going to put negative 25 times negative 25 equals negative 1. Okay, so on this one, now you have to follow the order of operation in the correct order. You have to do any multiplication and division first. So you have to do this part. Negative 25 times 1 is negative 25. Negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5. So now we bring down your 4, bring down your plus, put this in parentheses. This equals negative 1. So now you got to use your rules for addition again. You got positive 4 and you're subtracting 5. So you got 4 positives, 5 negatives, then you subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1, and you keep the absolute value of the bigger number. Here, since you have more negatives than positives, your answer is negative. So is negative equal to negative 1? Yes, it is. So you say the R is the solution, negative 25. Let's go ahead and do this real world problem, example number 4. When you have to write your own equation, guys, and they ask you what is this, always the unknown, I'm going to put it over here as a hint. The unknown becomes your variable. The part that you don't know is always going to be your variable. This is very important, so make sure you memorize that part so when you're writing your own equations, you can know what to give the variable. It says here, write a real world problem that can be expressed by the equation 2 times x plus 17 equals 23. then solve the equation. All right, then. So they already gave us a good example here that will go with this equation. Now here it says, Bruno spent $23 at the arcade. So that's one thing that's the total. He spent all that in the arcade. He purchased 2 drinks, and this usually turns into addition. Spent 17 on games. So he bought something and he spent something, right? What was the cost of the drink? So since you don't know what the cost of the drink, that's what becomes your variable. In this case, we're going to call X. And then you're going to put a little hint to yourself. It says, let X equals the cost of each drink. The cost of each drink. So the cost of each drink is going to be represented by this variable X right here. All right, so it says here, Bruno spent $23. That should be your total. He purchased 2 drinks. So then 2 times every drink, right? So that's why it becomes 2X. Now, and spent 17 on games. So he bought, this X represents drinks, 1 drink times 2 drinks that he bought. And then plus the 17 that he spent on games. That should equal the total money spent. Now, in order to find out X's, which is the cost of each drink, we have to solve this equation. All right, in example 1, 2, and 3, we found out that you have to undo any addition first or subtraction. In this case, they're adding 17 to the 2X, so you have to subtract 17 to both sides. This becomes 0. You bring down your 2X down, bring down your equal down. Now you perform this operation. 23 minus 17 is 6. So you end up with another equation. But now it's a lot simpler. Now since you see that 2 is being multiplied by X, you have to divide by 2 on both sides. This cancels, and you bring your X down, you bring your equal sign down, and then you perform this operation. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So if X is the cost of each drink, then each drink was worth $3. The cost of each drink was $3. And that's basically, I'm not gonna check this one, but make sure that you do the checks for examples 1, 2, and 3. And remember, if you understood everything, I need you to go ahead and do these problems. If you have to do them on a separate sheet of paper to have room, do that, because this is what I'm going to be checking. This is what I'm going to be checking to see if you actually have done your homework. But I don't just want the answers here. I want you to actually show me the work that gets you to the solution. All right, students, good luck. And go ahead and make sure that you pause and rewind this video to make sure that you know what is happening. All right, thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Bye.